Interview and job search strategies that work. In this episode, I want to talk about mentors or individuals that just show you the way, basically, and give you a little guidance, basically. Um, so I'll just tell you a story, right? Um, when I was when I was overseas and I worked there, and this guy named, so I was working night shift actually. And at that night, I was on the patching team. So I used to patch the servers. We had like, I don't know, 2,000 servers, something like that. And we would run PS tools. So Carlos and I would would uh, would patch all these servers or machines, basically doing use PS tools because we couldn't use SCCM to push them out. Anyway, long story short, um, what happened was we ended up uninstalling a patch, a Adobe patch, on all the machines, and then we had to reinstall them. When we reinstalled the Adobe, we pushed a script right to uninstall Adobe and reinstall it. And anyway, so what happened was we uninstalled like Adobe Pro on some of the other machines, maybe like 10 or 15 machines, something like that. And so the next morning, we'd solved the problem actually, right? So this is nice. So we came in the next morning. One of our coworkers is like, "Hey, let's tell the director, blah blah blah, what happened." So we go and tell the director, Tim, "Hey, this is what happened, right? But it's solved, right? And we just have to send people out to these 10 machines. We've already identified the machines that we need this particular Adobe software installed. I think it was Adobe Pro." And it's interesting when I was in that meeting. It's one of these meetings where it goes on too long, where it's like, okay, we fix it and we're good, right? We're solved. And here's the repercussion: just tell the customer that these 10 machines were needed patched or whatever, updated, done. Not some drawn out long. The reason is because in IT, some people you work with, they'll pick apart your story, and it's almost like they want to go back in time, and maybe some people just want to see you fail in IT, and they're like, "Oh yeah, see, I told you, you shouldn't have done like this and like that." So when you try new things in IT, you're gonna have individuals, you're gonna have people that are your managers, I won't say leaders, that will nitpick, whatever. And in this case, that's what happened. And so anyway, and I was like, whatever, And I go out of the meeting, and as I was walking out, I know this guy Alex. Alex was another in another section. So I was in what was I in? I forget. But anyway, he was in another section. They did programming. They did Maximo, IBM Maximo. And I said, "Hey, do you guys have any open positions where you're at?" As I was walking out, because it was like, really, come on, guys. And he's like, "Yeah, you know." And oh no, he asked me, some questions like, "Oh yeah, okay." And maybe I think a week, not even 2 weeks later, I was on the team, and I was like working for his team, but I was still part of my other team. And wasn't until a couple months later that he brought, I was part of their team fully. And why do I tell this story? So I tell you this story because at the time I didn't know VMware, I didn't know Commvault, I didn't know. Those are the two things I really didn't understand. I didn't know anything about VMware or Commvault. And the environment that they were in, they use VMware for their application servers. It was a Windows box, and their IBM is an application server or application that runs on Windows Server, and the database is Microsoft SQL. Of course, Oracle is what they really want to put it on, but they didn't have that. Anyway, so I learned uh, at that job, I learned VMware. That's how I learned VMware, and that's how I learned Commvault. And I remember installing Commvault maybe the first time I did it. I remember I was in one of the other buildings, and Rasheem was with me actually, and I was installing it. Like I said, well, it's not, and I kept saying, well, this is not how you install it. I kept saying, well, I found a new way not to how not to install it, basically, and that's what happened. So uh, what I found out was I just needed to turn the debugger on. I needed to add the user to the debuggers group on Windows, on the Windows server, for Commvault to be installed. So the benefit from that was the leader, I call him the leader, Alex Garland. He didn't jump to the gun, and he didn't he just really believed in me fully. And I'd always tell him, I said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. I'll find out. And so I'll tell you a couple instances of what happened in that regard. And so I needed they call it, what do they call it? They call it stigging, or locking down a server, basically, right? And you have these, the software that runs this, I don't know, it's like a checks and balances, if you can, the general term, checks and balances on a server. And a SQL server so we had a SharePoint instance on a server, and I ran this scan against the server, and I said, oh, well, we have to, the password isn't strong enough. We need to change the password. So Jacob and Rasheem were there, and I said, oh, yeah, well, let's just change the password. Well, unbeknownst to all of us, actually, really, it was my fault, really, truth be told, actually. Let's just say that. Anyway, so one of the servers was where we're at, and the other server was in Qatar, and it was mirrored. But with what is it, four? So SharePoint, what was it? SharePoint 2013, I think it was. I forget what year it was. Anyway, so version rather. Anyway, so so it was such that the SharePoint, one of the parts in SharePoint, I can't think of right now, that works. There's like four parts basically to this particular part of SharePoint databases, four individual databases that are part of SharePoint. And one of them was in Qatar, and the rest were where we were at in Kuwait. And so I was okay, let's just reset the password, right? So we did that. What happens? The director is like, hey, SharePoint's down. What's going on, right? And I remember Alex coming to us, and I had to go to Alex and say, Alex, we broke SharePoint, but we're gonna figure it out. And he was mad, right? Of course. But he just let us figure it out. And what we ended up doing was we P2V'd the server, physical to virtual the server, and hadn't looked back since. That's one of those times where that was really nice. I also remember being at night at working, during a patch cycle. So it was like a Wednesday. So what we do is we'd snapshot the VM, the virtual machine. I would, and we would do maintenance. We'd do like an upgrade to the Maximo server or something. And if it didn't work, we just restore back from the snapshot. Good to go. And I remember on occasion, Praba had to go, he had to do something else. So I was there, and Alex was there. And I'm not a Maximo guy, right? I wasn't a Maximo guy at the time anyway. And he's like, okay, well, I'm just figuring stuff out as I go, basically. Maximo, how the application servers works. Just understanding some of that stuff. It's kind of cool. And yeah, Alex just let me figure it out. Like, okay, and it was nice. Yeah, it was. So why do I tell you all that? What's the whole point of this? Me telling you this story, right? Why do you care? Basically, I tell you this story because when you have a leader like that's a leader, by the way, who understands your strengths and weaknesses, but gives you enough room to fail, but not damage everything. Basically, it just gives you enough. Okay, not at the moment's notice say it's not working out. You're not figuring out. We're gonna go a different direction because you go with what you have at the time, basically. And to bring somebody new in, um, I think he identified the passion that I have for IT. I think that's probably what it was. And if you're a leader yourself, and you have two individuals, and one is like not passionate about IT, and the other one is, even if the one that's not passionate has like the higher skill set, maybe as I did, sometimes you tend to go with the person who's more passionate because what they do is they go home and the problem's in their head and they want to figure it out. They want to, oh, what's the problem? I'll think about it. Yeah. And that really benefits two people. The benefits the leader, because the leader um can just rely on that person to figure it out. So that person, their checks and balances, there's things they do, meaning the individual, not the leader, but the employee basically just figures stuff out, just figures it out. And Alex really understands. So we had a lot of meetings, passed on meetings basically that where everybody would talk. And that's probably the second time really. Other time when I worked in Intel, but the second time Intel, the chip manufacturer, yeah. So this is the second time where I was at an area, and it's one of these things where I just need to be quiet, listen more, and just absorb knowledge because somebody else has something they want to tell, or they let me just listen before I talk. So those are two skills I actually gained from working with Alex. Actually, one is just learning to fail and just figure it out, and then relying on my team more so rather than being one stop shop. Just rely on your team, train the people you work with, and just expect them, do expect them to do great things, and they will. And just having that faith in the individual to just figure it out. That means so much. Actually, I think a lot of them, people follow leaders more than they follow probably money. Of course, money is important, by the way. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, yeah, money is important. I'll tell you another little tidbit, I guess. Right, where we're on top of the money. If you ever apply somewhere and like actually this has happened to me twice. So I had an interview for a job overseas making like 130 or whatever it was. 190, that's what it was. Yeah. Whoop-de-doo, right? 190. Anyway. So I made the mistake of saying, yeah, I'm looking forward to making the money to the person, what was it? IT operations manager. It was a network job, network engineer or something like that job. And I didn't get that job, of course, because I said that. And I said, oh man, I shouldn't have said that. The other time was when I worked for another company, and I was like, um, I basically text the individual I was going to work with, who would have been, well, who I would have worked with, and I said, so what's the per diem like over there? Basically, and he texts back like, I want somebody who works with me and not for money, or whatever, right? Like, okay, whatever, dude. Reality, right? Reality check. Um, so yeah, but I know better now, of course. Play the game, right? Everybody knows it's about money most of the time anyway. Unless you get to a point where you have so much money that your time is so valuable. It's more valuable for you to turn down a high paying job and take a lower paying job because of your time. You can do other things with your time. That's probably the only time. I guess what I'm talking about is maybe those individuals who don't really like, it's not a 9 to 5, but they work on projects. For instance, like some company might pay somebody 20 grand to do something, and they might not take the job because it requires a month. And this other company, they may take the other job from another company that's paying 10 grand a month for that particular project, let's say. That's what I'm talking about when I say That probably the only time, right? But majority of folks out there, they just want, we're looking for money, of course, right? But if we can have a good job as well, good work at or a good leadership, that really helps a lot. Makes the job easier. It makes it just a better work atmosphere altogether. So I think the takeaway that you can take away from this podcast is if you're maybe identifying a leader quickly, if you can, if you get to that level where you can identify a leader, and or if you can even meet them halfway, meaning there's a manager basically, and if you just write down your expectations when you go to a company and say, this is based on what I know about the company, here's what I see my first week looking like. And then you draw it out. Maybe you have a picture, maybe better yet, you just have bullet points on what you think is expected of you, right? And then you might also, which I've done this myself, might also tell the individual that you're working with, manager, who's probably a manager at the time, let's say, who's not a leader. This is how you work best. This is how you're motivated best. This, for instance, if it's a work in office, it's okay. I come in at, let's say, 8 or 7 or whatever, and I usually take a break at 10 o'clock. So please don't schedule your meetings for me from 10 to 11, right? And then I usually work through lunch, but don't say that because they may try to abuse that for you, like, okay, expect you to work. But if you just put down, okay, and then what you can say is you can say something like, okay, I work until 3 or 4. And if you have something for me to do, I'll spend 30 minutes or an hour a day figuring it out or whatever. And so that actually does a lot for you because he or she doesn't have to, you know, um, they kind of treat you better, really. They're trying to treat you like, okay, this person knows what's going on. They know how they work best. They know the environment they work in the best. They're telling me how they work best, and I should really adhere to that if I want to, as a manager, soon to be a leader. If I want to move into that role as a leader, I need to, adhere to what they're talking about. Because if the employee tells you, the manager, this is how they work best, that's how it should be. Because if the person knowing that, the fact that they know how they work best means a lot, actually. And that's easier on you as a manager who's soon to be a leader, where you don't have to worry, you don't have to really delegate a lot, really, with a person like that, who understands the atmosphere, who understands like how things go. And the other benefit is probably only going to come to you when there's a problem. For instance, they might not know the environment, the company culture environment, or maybe the end customer, they don't understand, but they're going to come to you when they have a problem, and it's not going to be something simple, especially if they already have a couple years of experience in whatever, let's say IT field. They're going to come to you if there's really a problem. And what you're after is, as a manager, soon to be a leader, you want to try, if a person comes to you and says, this is how I work best, the very next thing you want to do is you want to ask your other employees who you work for, actually, hey, well, how do you guys work best? Can you guys give me, and you should probably know that already, actually, by the way, but if you don't, ask them, how do you guys work best? I want to change it up. I want to make it, more adaptable to your schedule. How do you, what kind of breaks do you want to take? And of course, they're going to be a little offset or a little like, oh, hey, what's going on with this? Or are we, something changing? But just explain to them that, I work for you as a leader. That's what you want to explain to them. I work for you. Um, I want to do stuff on your behalf. I want to give you everything possible so I can absorb any criticism, any back blow from the my leadership, and you don't have to absorb it because that's less stress on you. And I'll own that basically is what you're after. That's how you lead basically. You absorb all the nonsense stuff that doesn't really matter, and you're there really to fight for the employee, because the other leaders maybe don't understand and something taken out of context. So you're there to just kind of, oh, okay, this is how it is, and since that person knows you, it's going to come across different than it would if that, let's say, your manager goes directly to the employee, whoever it is. It's not going to be the same, because they look at them differently than they look at you. They look at them in a different light. They don't have the same relationship basically that they have with you, that they have with your leadership. So yeah, just to finish this off, thanks a lot, Alex Garland. Really taught me a lot. Really appreciate it. Praba, Jacob, Edgardo, Rasheem, yeah, Praba, of course. You guys, awesome. Thanks. Yeah, really enjoyed working with you guys. So, yep. Okay. Thanks everybody listening to the podcast. Have a great day.